Next, we are going to work with the front panel only, attaching the zippers to the slanted edges. And what you're going to do first is make a mark 1¼ inch down from the top edge. And just make a small mark on the side of the bag, just like that. And do the same on the other side, 1¼ inches. Next, we're going to take our two 10-inch zippers and I'm going to flame the ends to keep them from fraying. And with these two zippers, we're going to turn the top of each side at a 90-degree angle. So just pinch the tape in a way that makes the zipper teeth angle at a 90-degree angle, and then pin it in place. You can see the back side here as well. And we are just going to baste this close to the edge really fast so that that stays in place. So you can see that that is staying in place, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side, making it as even as you can. Pin this side as well, and repeat the basting step. Okay, I have repeated these steps on the second zipper. So we now have two zippers with angled tops. We are now going to clip these zippers face down, so right sides facing the right side of the front panel, lining up the top of the zipper where it folds over. Line it up with that mark you made on the front panel and clip that in place. The zipper is a little bit longer than the front panel, but that is intentional, so make sure you do not cut the zipper to be the same length as the front panel. We're going to want that length on the zipper later. Okay, do the same to the other side with your other zipper. Okay, you can see both zippers are now clipped in place, and again, we have the zipper is just a little bit longer than the bottom of the front panel, and we're going to leave that length there. Don't trim the zipper to be flush with the bottom of the front panel. So now we are going to just baste these zippers on at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, we now have basted zippers, and we are going to take our exterior pocket liner piece and we're going to place this face down and line up the bottom edges and the side edges and clip that in place. So our exterior pocket liner piece is clipped to the zippers, and what we're going to do is just make a mark on the side of the exterior pocket liner piece right above the zipper. Here's where the zipper extends out from the front panel. It comes up this way and then makes a 90-degree turn, and it comes out right here. So we're going to make a mark on the exterior pocket liner piece just above the zipper, and do that on both sides. Here's the zipper here, and our mark. And what we're going to do is put our needle down right on that mark, and we're going to sew all the layers together at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I still use a 3/8 inch seam allowance even though we are sewing a zipper. I think it looks cleaner to have a closer seam allowance to the zipper. Put your needle down and backstitch over that zipper a couple times to secure it. So as you can see here, the top of the exterior pocket liner and the front panel are not sewn together quite yet. We are starting here at your mark and sewing all the way down at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Do the same thing on this other side here, but you're gonna start at the bottom this time and go up to your mark and then back stitch, but don't exceed the mark. Okay, we are approaching the mark that we drew on this side, and we're going to go over the zipper, stop at the mark, and back stitch back over the zipper just a couple times to secure. And then you can see here that we did not go past our mark. So next we are going to turn this right side out. And give it a good press if you have any wrinkles. All right, I have pressed the exterior pocket liner, and what we're gonna do now is top stitch down the zippers. But we only wanna top stitch from right above the zipper down, all the way down to the end. We want to keep the top of these two pieces unsewn at this time. So start your stitching, put your needle down right above your zipper, and then go all the way down to the end. And on the other side, you're going to want to start at the bottom and go all the way up and stop your stitch line right above your zipper. Keep your thread tails long because we are going to be pulling these to the back and tying them off. Okay, so we're going to top stitch all the way up to the point right past our zipper. So go right over the zipper, and once your needle goes down into the fabric on the other side of the zipper, we're going to lift our needle and pull long tails of threads. And there is our top stitch. You can cut the threads at the bottom, but at the top, we are going to pull these to the back by just tugging on the bobbin thread. Pull the top thread to the back and tie a strong knot. You won't be able to see this knot inside the pocket because of what we're going to do at a later step. so the knot is not going to be visible. Next, I have just a regular needle and I've threaded it with one of the top stitching threads. And I'm just going to put the needle through the stitch hole in the exterior pocket liner and then have the needle come out in between the layers of the liner and the front panel. Okay, do the same with the other thread. Just put it right through that last stitch hole and in between the layers of the front panel and the liner. And this way your threads can stay long and then they can just get stuffed down in between the layers so you don't have to cut them off short. I've already done the other side as well. So both of your zipper edges are now top stitched. Next, we're going to retrieve our zipper pocket back piece and we're going to lay our front panel with our zippers so that the pocket liner is right sides together with the pocket back piece. And we're going to line up the bottom edges and line the zippers up to the sides of the zipper pocket back. And just clip those in place. And then we're going to baste stitch down the zippers to attach all of these pieces together. Now your front panels and your zipper pocket back are now attached at the zippers. And we are now going to close the top of the pocket. What you want to do first is fold back your front liner as much as you can to expose the top of the zipper pocket liner and the top of the zipper pocket back piece. So we are going to stitch from this edge all the way over to this edge of the liner at about 1 inch or so seam allowance. But while we do that, we are going to want to hold this corner of the liner at an angle like this. So we don't want it to be straight up and down, because then once we stitch the rest of our main panel, you'll be able to see the liner right here. So when we fold this back to expose the liner and stitch it, we want to grab the corner of our pocket and angle it inwards. And we're going to start stitching at about 1 inch seam allowance from this top edge. Once we stitch all the way over to the other side, we're going to do the same thing where we grab this corner and we angle it inwards, and then we finish our stitches without going past the liner. And I'll show you more what I mean when I'm done. I also like to use a narrow zipper foot for this step so I can get as close to a 1 inch seam allowance as I possibly can. It doesn't have to be perfectly 1 inch seam allowance right here. It just has to be enough to be out of the top seam allowance when we go to drop in our lining in the very last step. So fold this back, angle your liner, and stitch through your liner piece and your zipper pocket back piece. All the way across. And now I'm approaching the other corner of the liner, so I'm going to pull the corner that way so that it's angled, and I'm going to stitch right over it. Without going over. Okay, so now I can show you a little bit more about what I mean. So when we started, I pulled the corner of the liner so that this edge was angled. So it wasn't going straight up. It is now angled like this. And we started with our needle down within the edge of the liner. So our seam starts here, and I didn't go past. So if I went past the liner here, you would see the stitches when we closed up this pocket here. You'd see it on this side. And then I stitched all the way across, and once I approached this edge, I angled this corner as well, and then I stopped my stitches before I left the edge of the liner here. So the next step is going to be to finish the top stitch on this edge of the front panel. What we're going to do is start with our needle down in the very last stitch hole that we made when we were top stitching this edge. So start with our needle down and top stitch until you hit the top edge. Your exterior material, like if you're using vinyl or leather or cork, it should fold in a way that it continues the same angle all the way up to the top. So just start with your needle down and go all the way up to the top. And on the other side, you're going to start at the top edge and sew all the way down until you hit your very first stitch hole on this side. Bringing this over to the machine, and I'm making sure that my needle is placed right in that stitch hole from our last top stitching. And I'm also making sure that the edge of my front panel is folded in a way that it just continues that angle that we had before. And of course, my threads are pulled long, so we are going to be tying those off when we're done. And you can backstitch at the top here. And cut those ones short. So as you can see here, the angle of our top stitching remains pretty constant, even though these were top stitched at 2 different steps. And our tails are long, so we are going to flip to the back and pull on our bobbin thread. And our top thread should come to the back. And then we'll tie this off and do the same to the other side. Okay, I've completed the top stitching on the top of both sides of the front panel, and our next step is to cut away the seam allowance just in between the 2 top stitching lines that we made. So right above this line and right next to these 2 lines within the center of those. And that is to remove a lot of this bulk for our very last step in this pattern, which is going to be dropping in the liner. Even if you're birthing this bag, you're going to want to do this step to remove that bulk. So as you can see, I cut away a lot of that. Obviously, I did not cut the front panel, just the pocket liner and the zipper pocket back portion. And I'm going to get right up next to this top stitch seam to cut away some of that material there. And again on this side as well, just right up against that top stitch. And then you can see here that a lot of that material has been cut away now. So the last thing that you want to make sure of is that your zipper pocket back panel may be covering up this 1-inch line that we drew at the beginning of our pattern when we were prepping our pieces. And that line is a guide that is going to tell us where to fold our top down when we are preparing to drop in the liner. So if this is covered by your back pocket panel piece, then you're going to want to redraw that line on this piece here. But some of you may still be able to see this line because maybe your seam allowance here was more than 1 inch, which is totally fine. And you cut maybe really close to your stitch line or something, and maybe you can still see that 1-inch line. But if you can't, just go back and fill that line back in again by just drawing on the back panel. Okay, so not sure if you're able to see this or not, but I do have a red line now at a 1 inch, so I'll be able to fold over my top later on to meet this line.